Your interview videos will improve dramatically if you can put your interviewee at ease during filming. I've been conducting interviews for videos for the last 7 years, and in this video I'm going to share my top 7.5 tips for conducting a successful interview. There's a saying in photography that the most important part of the camera is the 12 inches just behind it. In other words, the person taking the pictures. And although videos involves a few more people, the principles apply. It's not just the cameras, lighting and the setup that will make a good video, it's actually how you interact with the people in the video that can really improve things. The camera amplifies everything, so if your interviewee is feeling nervous, that's going to come across even more on camera. Likewise, if they have low energy, it's going to amplify that as well, and they just won't come across well. So we, as the interviewer, have to work really hard to make them feel comfortable and get the energy levels just right. Firstly, it starts from the very moment you walk through the door, and I'll often go straight up to the person and start a conversation with them rather than concentrating on any of the gear or anything. I know that's such an important aspect of what we're about to do. So I get talking to them, ask them some questions, you know, maybe some personal questions about the family, whatever. Try and find some common ground and build rapport with them, because that is going to help you. Even if you're interviewing them in like an hour's time or 2 hours time, you've got to start building that rapport immediately when you walk through the door. The next thing is to show them round the setup so they know what everything is, what everything's doing. Introduce them to your team, make sure everyone's, knows why everyone's there and what they're doing. Show them the cameras, tell them why you've got a 2-camera setup if that's what you're doing, what the lights are doing and what we can see in the background and everything. Make them feel really comfortable with the process. Thirdly, what we often find is that people just don't know what's possible in the edit. So if you edit videos on a regular basis, you understand, how you can take an hour-long interview and condense it down to a minute long, and it'll just look like, they just stood there and delivered their lines. But they probably won't have any experience of that. So it's a really good idea to talk them through that process and reassure them that however it feels to them, it's gonna come across well in the end once we edit it all down. Fourth, use your questions. You should have a list of questions that you're gonna ask, but don't stick to them too rigidly. I once went on a podcast and there were some very rigid questions and it just didn't feel like the conversation flowed. And it's the same when you're being interviewed for a video, and when you're doing the interviewing, you have to be able to sort of flex around those questions a bit. So think of it as a basic structure, but let the conversation flow as well. So if they start talking about something, feel free to link up your next question with what they've just talked about. Make it feel comfortable for them, make it feel natural, and you're gonna get a much better result that way. Just quickly, if you're finding these videos helpful, please hit the subscribe button and leave us some comments under the video as well with your questions. We'd love to know what you wanna know about, and if you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, you'll get a notification when these videos come out. Right, back to it. Number 5, listen to them properly. Listening is super important, and I know it's difficult because you're thinking about the next question that you've got coming up, and sometimes I will look down and just read the next question so I know what's coming up, but make sure that you are listening to them, that they know that you're listening and that you're not just sort of zoning out and thinking about something else or thinking about any of the technical stuff. You've got to really be listening to them. Make sure they understand that you're listening, they can see that you're listening, and they're going to just feel a lot more comfortable having that conversation with you. Number 6, sometimes people go into loads of detail, especially maybe if you're interviewing someone with more of a technical role in the company. They can get kind of bogged down in the details and everything, and that's great. Let them talk about it, but it might just be a bit too much for what you need for the final cut of the video. So my tip here is to, once they've been through all of that and you've understood it, then at the end of it, just ask them to summarize what they've just said, and you'll be really surprised. I sometimes use the words, zoom out. So just say to them, right, can you just zoom out now and give us a bit of a top level summary of what you've just explained? And more often than not, they'll give you a really nice little summary of what they've just said, and that'll be the cut that you use in the final video. And number 7, at the end of the interview, just check that everyone is happy that you've covered everything. So ask your team, ask the interviewee, of course, go back through your questions, just make sure that you're happy. You'll know that you're fully covered when it comes to the edit. Now, a little bonus tip is sometimes what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll ask the very first question again. The reason for that is that first question is when they usually introduce themselves. So they say, hi, I'm so-and-so from here. this is my role. Now, at the beginning, when you ask that question, it's going to be, right at the start, they're not warmed up. But at the end of the interview, if you go back to that question, you'll find they've got much better energy and they'll just answer that question more confidently, and it'll come across a lot better when you start the video. And finally, I promised you 7.5 tips. So this is just a little one which I quite like, but that is, if you're wearing a jacket when you turn up, and stick with me on this, you're wearing a jacket when you turn up, a really cool tip is to make sure that when you first meet the people, if you're calling at their office or you're going to their facility, whatever it is to actually unbutton your jacket so that it's open. I know it sounds like a small thing, and it is, but it's one of these little sort of, 1%ers that can make a little bit of difference. Just unbutton your jacket and you're a little bit more open when you meet them, whereas if you're all zipped up, you're a little bit sort of hidden from them, and it just helps, again, with building that rapport and everything. And again, smile, make sure you're facing people, make sure you're looking them in the eyes, and it's all about building that rapport with them so that when you get to the interview stage, you're going to get the best possible interview. So remember, it's down to you to make this interview work, all right? It's not all down to the person being interviewed. You have to take responsibility to make sure they feel comfortable, they feel at ease, and that they come across naturally. But you can do it. Good luck.